And so with that, I will begin. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for this webinar. We host this series, the JMF webinar series, every month. We host these webinars at 1 p.m. on the final Thursday of every month. For the months of May, June, and July, we are exploring different ways to reach net zero GHG emissions in your municipality. So today we'll be focused on climate action planning and have two municipal guests, speakers, who will share about net zero targets that they've set for their municipality. My name is Kiana Simmons. I'm a project officer and the lead on the Partners for Climate Protection program here at the Green Municipal Fund. I'm joined today by my colleagues Emma Kirk, a project coordinator with the Capacity Development Team, Jesse Granger, a project officer with the Capacity Development Team, and my colleague Angelina Giordano, who's also a project officer with the Capacity Development Team, who you'll hear from in just a few moments. Angelina is the lead on the Net Zero Action Research Partnership Program, or NZAP for short, PRAC en français. Before we continue, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you today from lands that have been inhabited by Indigenous peoples for thousands of years. We recognize the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people as the traditional custodians of the land upon which FCM's offices are located. We also recognize the contributions of the Métis, Inuit, and all First Nations in both shaping and strengthening this community and our country as a whole. Wherever you are, please join me in paying our respects to the original stewards of the land. If you'd like to share in the chat where you're joining from and which traditional territory that is, we'd welcome that. Before we begin, we have a couple of housekeeping items. We do have simultaneous interpretation available today. So if you would like to listen in French, you can click on the little globe icon that is on the sort of black bar at the bottom of your screen. The presentations will be in English today. So if you're in the original audio channel, you will be able to listen in English, or you can go into the English channel if you prefer. We would ask that you pose questions to our presenters. You can use the Q&A function. That would be the best way to get those questions answered. That Q&A box is also in that little black bar at the bottom. And we would encourage you to use the chat for any relevant links or thoughts or suggestions that you might want to add. But we really recommend using that Q&A function in order for us to get to your questions. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to start off with a quick overview of the Partners for Climate Protection and the Net Zero Action Research Partnership programs. And then we have two presentations from, beginning Emily Cormier, the Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Sault Ste. Marie, and Cecilia Jakes, the Senior Climate and Energy Strategist for the City of Nelson, BC. They are each going to do about a 10-15-minute presentation, and then you will have an opportunity to pose questions. And we'll get to those questions that are in the Q&A box as well. Before we begin, if you haven't come to one of our webinars before, I just wanted to give you a little bit of information on the Green Municipal Fund. The Green Municipal Fund helps local governments switch to sustainable practices faster. We have a mix of funding, resources, and training that gives municipalities the tools they need to build resiliency and to create better lives for Canadians. GMF is a $1.6 billion funded program by the Government of Canada, and we fund projects in the energy, waste, land use, transportation, and water sectors. We would encourage you to go to the GMF website to learn more about funding opportunities, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. So without further ado, Angelina and I are going to give you a quick overview of our programs. Today, we will be hearing from two municipal representatives who are Partners for Climate Protection program members. And I'm sure that some of you who are in this webinar today are aware of the PCP program, but if you aren't, it's a great opportunity for us to give you the lowdown. What is the PCP program? It is a network of over 500 Canadian municipal governments that are committed to reducing GHGs and acting on climate change. Partners for Climate Protection program is a framework to guide municipalities through 5 steps of implementing a local climate action plan. And this program is a partnership between FCM and ICLEI Canada. The partnership has been around since 1994, so it is older than I am, and we have a proven track record of supporting municipalities in beginning their climate action journey and taking them through our milestones, our 5 milestones, to developing a climate action plan and implementing that climate action plan. These are some of our members. We have members in all 13 provinces and territories. I mentioned that we're over 500. We're closer to 550 these days. And over 70% of the Canadian population is represented in our member municipalities. You can find out on our website who is involved in the program, but it is quite a lot of municipalities in Canada. So if you're curious about the program, some of your neighbors might already be participating. When I talk about the 5 milestones, these are them. Our program helps municipalities begin by creating a greenhouse gas emission inventory. We have a tool that helps municipalities start the process of quantifying where their emissions are coming from. And the first milestone is to create that inventory and submit it to the project partners. The second milestone is to set an emissions reduction target. The third is to develop a plan to address those emission reduction targets. And the fourth milestone is implementing those plans. The fifth milestone is to monitor the impact of those mitigation actions. And our program is designed to be repeated. So once you've completed milestone 5, you can restart the program with your new and improved, inventory, which would have ideally lower emissions than you began. And we've had municipalities that have worked through the framework a number of times when we provide free support to municipalities along the way to keep them moving. Another benefit to our program is that we provide a series of technical support tools and resources. We have a number of guidebooks. We have a platform for our members called the PCP Hub, which is sort of like a blog and forum. We kind of consider it like a PCP LinkedIn, where you can ask specific questions that your municipality might need help on. We have subgroups for francophone municipalities, small municipalities, rural municipalities to discuss specific issues that they're facing. We also have what we call the PCP tool, which is a tool that we've developed to help you do that initial greenhouse gas emission inventory. It walks you through the process. It helps you find where to get the data, and it outputs in a format that our reviewers can then assess and keep you moving on your climate action journey. If you are interested in becoming a PCP member, this is a free program, again, funded by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and ICLEI Canada. There is no cost to join. However, we do ask for a couple things before we admit municipalities into the program. We ask that our members download a joining resolution and have their council adopt this resolution. We will need 1 staff member and 1 elected official to be the official PCP contacts. And once you have those 2 pieces, you would just send an email to pcp@fcm.ca, and I personally would receive that, put it into our contact management system, and get you set up with the program, sending you the resources that you would need to access the hub and to begin working through the milestones. With that, I will pass it over to my colleague Angelina to speak about the NZAP project.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'll ask you to go to the next slide, please. I also want to give a quick shout out to something that happened in the chat. Andrew Black shared that Tantramar just hit milestone 5 of the PCP program. So everyone, we can celebrate that huge accomplishment. So I'm here today to talk about a partnership between ICLEI Canada, the University of Waterloo, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. It's called the Municipal Net Zero Action Research Partnership. The name in French is Partenariat de Recherche Action sur la Carboneutralité Municipale. And as you can see from this logo cluster, we have a variety of stakeholders engaged. We have universities, we have not-for-profits, we have municipalities, and it's an action research partnership. So we're all working together to create resources that will ultimately help municipalities to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and achieve net zero targets. If you could go to the next slide, please, Kiana. So this slide basically is the entire 5-year program in a nutshell, and there are 5 different working groups with the ultimate goal of improving the monitoring and measuring of Canadian municipal greenhouse gas emissions, with the ultimate goal of local greenhouse gas emissions reducing projects, policies, and programs, having them be aligned with Canada's national reduction commitments. So there are 5 working groups. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities is a co-chair, and the one at the top determining current state in Canadian municipalities, and the one at the bottom mobilizing knowledge, resources, and tools. So the first working group is the one I'm going to focus on today, because this morning we just launched a Canada-wide survey to measure the climate action in municipalities across the country. And I'll be sharing that link in the chat. So if you are responsible for your municipality's climate action work, I encourage you to fill out the survey. It's a big project, and the survey was co-created with the University of Waterloo, Concordia's John Molson School of Business, and then also the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and with a test group of municipalities to ensure that this survey is going to provide us with a good picture of what's going on in mitigation activities for municipalities across the country. So that survey will repeat in year 5 of the program, and all of this information will go into an open access database. Some of the questions will be reserved only to researchers because those are a bit more nuanced, and we understand that some of those results we might not want to publish in an open access database. I'll just do a quick overview for the other 4 working groups because we don't have a lot of time. The second working group is to advance standardized measurement systems and tools. So what are the sustainability indicators that municipalities are using to be successful? And these will ultimately wrap up into a greenhouse gas emissions quantification tool so that municipalities can more easily measure those indicators. And that will be based on academic case studies. The third working group is to enhance municipal emissions monitoring and disclosure tools related to climate budgeting, task force for climate-related financial disclosures, and carbon budgeting. And that all of those results from those academic case studies will go into an instruction manual on climate budgets and a guide. Then the fourth working group is on collaborative governance. So what does it mean to have more meaningful participation from different stakeholders working collaboratively to action a lot of this work? Ultimately, all of that will wrap up into a knowledge mobilization campaign where the Federation of Canadian Municipalities will work with all the other working groups to get that information out there. And we have some pretty high targets. So the French survey link is the French and the English survey links are in the chat. Please only take the survey if you are the person responsible for climate change work at your municipality so that we have the most accurate data. If you have any questions, please send me an email and I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Angelina. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Emily. Emily, unfortunately, I have the slide that had your contact picture and bio that has been deleted from my deck. So if you'd like to give a quick introduction of who you are and your background, please feel free to, but I will pass it over to you to begin your presentation.
Thanks, Kiana. Hi, everyone. A pleasure to be here today. As Kiana said, my name is Emily Cormier. I am the Sustainability Coordinator at the City of Sault Ste. Marie. I have a fairly large portfolio. I work on everything from climate change to energy projects, waste reduction, water, trees, you name it. Lots on the go. A little bit about me. I'm a project manager by trade. I'm a certified PMP. I have a background in natural resources and sustainability planning. The majority of my work has been in Northern Ontario. I've worked for a utility on large energy conservation and demand management projects across Northwestern Ontario. But I really cut my teeth actually into this space, working for a very small municipality that some of you may know of called Wawa. So I'm really happy today to talk to you about what we're doing here in Sault Ste. Marie. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, Kiana, it's good to go?
It's good to go.
Okay, very good. So yeah, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview on what's been cooking here in Sault Ste. Marie, or the Soo, as we call it as locals, since I got here in 2019. So for those who don't know, Sault Ste. Marie is located in the center of the Great Lakes. We are a mid-sized municipality, single tier, and we are about, 73,000 people. We're on the border with Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. So be careful when you book a hotel here that you're booking in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and not Michigan, if you like to come up this way. So a lot of the work that I do actually started, the baseline started in 2018. We had a community development project called Future Sault Ste. Marie, or Future SSM. And this project had 4 pillars to mobilize the municipality to work on to grow our community to 100,000 people in 20 years. And the 4 pillars were economic growth and diversity, social equity, cultural vitality, and environmental sustainability, which is where my work falls under. So as I said earlier, I am the city's sustainability lead. I'm responsible for leading climate change mitigation and emission reduction initiatives, including the implementation of our community greenhouse gas reduction plan, which I developed. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that project, how it came to be, do a bit of a deep dive into our emissions inventory, and talk about the implementation of our plan. Where are we now? And some of the projects and initiatives that we have cooking this year and beyond. So this all started in 2019 when our city, like many cities and municipalities across Canada, received funding from the FCM's Municipal Climate Innovation Program. And in the fall of that year, we joined the PCP for the very first time. So we took a big step in 2019 in addressing climate change. We developed our very first community emissions inventory. And so this allowed us to really understand where and how our emissions were coming from. We then set our emission reduction targets, and we developed a local action plan that was unanimously approved by City Council on December 14th, 2020. This plan provides us with a roadmap on what our community and the corporation, the city, can do to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. I'm not going to go into the details. That was already done about the PCP program. I can't stress enough how great of a program it is, in particular the tool, the online tool. It's very easy to use, straightforward, and it's allowing us to continue to update our community and corporate inventories on a regular basis. We have gone through milestones 1 to 3 officially, and we need to submit our paperwork for milestones 4 and 5. So a lot of great tools from the FCM for that, very excellent resources. So all of this started with establishing our very first community greenhouse gas emissions inventory. We used 2017 as our baseline. I'll caveat this extremely large number for a municipality of 73,000 people. We are a steel town. We have a large steel producer as well as a couple of other large industrial manufacturing facilities, which is why the majority of our emissions do come from the use of industrial natural gas. This is very common for other cities that are steel towns, such as Hamilton. The second largest source of emissions, of course, was on-road transportation. Interestingly enough, our emissions per capita based on our baseline were actually higher, slightly above the Canadian national per capita emissions in 2017. We were at 20.5, Canada was at 19.5. So again, smaller population, large industry. High energy use from natural gas in the industrial sector, coupled with a lower population, certainly resulted in this. But industrial emissions are monitored and regulated by the federal and provincial governments. So what we did is we actually had two inventories for our community. We did one with everything, and then we took the industrial emissions out so we could have a better understanding of what our emissions in the community were that we could actually have a bit more control over. So now you see this pie chart, which does show exactly that. So transportation, of course, is the highest source, followed by the built environment. We also created a corporate, so municipal emissions inventory. No surprise there. Fleet was our highest source, followed by buildings. So again, great. If you haven't done this already, building that baseline certainly is a great point. You now have the numbers to see where you are and to measure your progress moving forward. So our climate plan was, as I said earlier, unanimously approved by City Council in 2020. My slides are skipping. Our actions are based on both community and corporate efforts. We had a series of priorities and actions that were established for community and corporate. So we looked at buildings and energy, transportation and waste, green space, economic development, and municipal leadership. We do have a long-term target of net zero by 2050. Our preliminary targets for 2030 are quite low, but we are certainly looking at increasing our scale of reduction between 2030 and 2050. So in addition to the 7 pillars of our GHG reduction plan, we also established a series of guiding principles. These were identified when we were doing our stakeholder consultations, and they highlight a series of reoccurring opportunities that integrate within our climate change action. So these include affordability. So by reducing energy costs, you can create more economical housing, accountability, ensuring a sustainable future for the next generation. Education and awareness is very big in our community. Community pride, so diversifying our sustainability options to improve well-being, as well as economic development through clean tech, environmental and habitat protection, health, as well as food security. So where are we now? It has been 2 years as of December of last year since Council approved our climate plan. Since we received that endorsement, the city has been working on increasing sustainability initiatives within our operations and the community. This work is the result of leadership and active partnerships formed through the spirit of collaboration with all city departments, as well as community partners. And how we are reporting on our progress is we actually launched our very first sustainability report in May of this year, which aligns 100% with our emissions reduction plan, and we will be doing this on an annual basis. So a couple of highlights from our first sustainability report. Lots on the go. So we actually established a community fund where local nonprofits as well as city departments can apply to the city for money for projects that reduce emissions, increase energy efficiency, reduce waste, encourage active transportation, green space development, as well as water conservation. We developed a committee to oversee the implementation of our greenhouse gas reduction plan, as well as to make recommendations for funding for applications that come through the Green Fund. A lot of money has been devoted to new projects within the community. We've had 15 green initiatives between 2021 and 2022, and that number is growing. We've received quite a few incentives and grants and funding for different climate and energy projects, have significantly increased our uptake in retrofit projects. One initiative that I'm particularly proud of is our partnership with our neighboring First Nation, Garden River First Nation. Over the past couple of years, we've partnered with them to deliver a series of energy and sustainability literacy webinars. They are in the process of implementing their Indigenous community energy plan as we are implementing our climate plan, so it seemed natural that we work together on that. We've wrapped up stage 1 of our community efficiency financing project and will be applying for funding to do a program design. We implemented a single-use plastic ban actually in November of 2022, launched an active transportation master plan, did a BioBlitz with a bunch of community organizations, and we're one of 4 communities to receive money from the Ontario government and Enbridge in Ontario for a hybrid heat pump project. So that's just a little snippet. Going into some more detail here, I've mentioned some of these already, but we also, to further reiterate our commitment to our climate plan, we signed in 2021 the United Nations Cities Race to Zero campaign. We worked on an urban forestry plan and tree canopy project, which was really exciting as well. And a big thing that happened in 2021 is that the city actually created a permanent staff position, being myself, to oversee this portfolio. 2022, we continued with our retrofits. We started working with our university on a watershed remediation project. And through our environmental committee, we did a series of sustainability highlights on key stakeholders in our community. So our electric utility, our steel plant, which is working on a huge electric arc furnace project, which will reduce their emissions by 70%. Natural Resources Canada. As well, in 2022, we launched our transit electrification study project. We do have a goal to electrify our transit fleet, so we're actively working on that. And we also partnered with a community group to host a World Water Day community presentation. Here's some snapshots of a couple of the projects that we've funded, lots of smiling faces there. This is through our Green Fund, which we launched in 2021. Again, these are projects that community, nonprofits, and city departments can apply for that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, essentially just re-greening initiatives in our community. So very proud of that. And then this year, quite a lot on the go. We updated our corporate emissions inventory at the beginning of this year. Unfortunately, we did also update our corporate emissions, so our municipal operational emissions, and they are up. So despite our efforts, we need to certainly double down on our efforts and take a more united approach to implementing our climate plan and achieving our targets. So we've actually done a couple of remedial steps, one being we've added our very first climate change impact statement to all council reports. So many municipalities are in the audience today. This is a significant step. All projects, funding applications, etc., that go to council must have a report, and so they now must address climate impact. We've also started hosting a biannual energy and sustainability meeting with our senior management team to flesh out projects and really encourage and move the needle on prioritizing greenhouse gas emissions reduction. We partnered with a local think tank to host a series of energy incentive information sessions. We had Enbridge, we had ICF, who are the IESO's community Northern Ontario retrofit program delivery agent up here as well. We partnered with some community groups on a biodiversity initiative, and we hosted a bike to work week. We also participated in Yellowfish Road's Trout Unlimited Canada's Yellowfish Road program in partnership with a local school board. And what's cooking? Well, excited to say we will be installing our first set of EV chargers for our municipal fleet. We are behind many other municipalities, but better to be late than never. So we're very excited about that. We received funding from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to do some deep energy retrofit audits at our top 6 emitting facilities, and we will be updating our community emissions inventory. We're working on a bird-friendly city designation, and we're actually looking to refresh our Green Fund just to get rid of some of the red tape and make it more easy for community nonprofits to apply. We're looking at developing a climate action communications campaign, and we'll be showcasing all of our departmental climate initiatives at our monthly environmental sustainability committee meetings. And last but not least, we are looking at developing an ESG policy. So certainly not a slow portfolio, lots on the go. So I guess in closing, I know I'm almost at my time here. I guess I can leave all of the attendees with this. So our climate plan required shifting away from traditional ways of thinking in our community. We are a medium-sized municipality with the primary employer being an extremely large polluter. So I think that might have been one of the reasons why we're a bit late to get in on this sustainability climate action game. But we set the stage by establishing our emissions inventory. We decided what to do by developing our climate plan, and we're making it happen by allocating resources and continuing to look for ways to prioritize sustainability projects. And we're making it stick by reporting on our corporate emissions on an annual basis and leaving no stone unturned when it comes to seeking project investments through funding, partnerships, pilot opportunities, and more. Climate action for the smaller municipalities in the audience has many opportunities. It can help grow your economy. It can help create green jobs. Climate action today will help your economy. It will help your community. It will help the country. And most importantly, it will make a better world. Thank you so much for your attention. Sorry if I went over my time there, but really appreciate the opportunity talking about what we're doing here in the Soo.
Thanks so much, Emily. That's really exciting work. And there's already some questions coming into the chat. So thank you to those of you, in the Q&A box. Thank you to those of you who are putting your questions there. We'll just hold the questions until after Cecilia's presentation, and then you'll be able to pick Emily's brain. Okay, thank you. So I am going to pass it over to Cecilia. I do have your bio now, which I will read. Cecilia works at the intersection between strategy, engagement, and sustainability, and is driven by her mission to build an equitable and resilient future. She holds a master's in sustainability science, is published in the Journal of Sustainability, MDPI, and is a certified change management practitioner. Was the founder of a small sustainability consultancy in Vancouver before joining the City of Nelson. In her current role, Cecilia stewards the implementation of the City of Nelson's visionary climate plan, Nelson Next. She's committed to leveraging her passion and education to advocate for climate justice, youth inclusion in decision-making, and the integration of mindfulness to support collective well-being. Welcome, Cecilia. I will hand it over to you.
Thanks, Kiana. Can everybody hear me okay? Sounds good? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen there. Okay, so it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Emily, for the beautiful presentation. I feel like you really packed in a lot of information there, so I'll try and do the same. My role at the City of Nelson began about 2 years ago, and as Kiana mentioned, I'm responsible for stewarding the implementation of our climate plan. So as you'll learn, we have a pretty extensive climate and energy team, but we also have amazing staff in all the city departments that are also involved in implementing our climate plan, and you'll hear some more about that. So
sorry, Cecilia, I'm going to jump in and just ask you to share your slides and present your view.
Oh, are they not here? Hold on.
We are seeing sort of your whole PowerPoint.
Oh, good. How's that?
It's the same for me.
Same for you? Okay. I think.
Yeah.
Let me try that.
We had it for a second. Perfect.
That's good. Okay. Thanks, Kiana. So today I'm going to talk about our climate plan, Nelson Next, and let you learn a little bit about that process. And we're also going to talk about the approach to implementation that we take here in Nelson, which is a little bit different than some other communities. And then similarly to Emily, I'm going to share some climate action and equity highlights that really just demonstrates the direction that we've taken since we've adopted our climate plan. So for those of you that don't know, the City of Nelson is located in the regional district of Central Kootenay. We're a small rural mountain community. We've got about 11,000 people here. We're known for our heritage culture and tourism, and something unique about Nelson is that we actually have our own hydroelectric clean energy utility through Nelson Hydro. that actually works as a department of the city, which is quite unique. So the other thing that I wanted to draw your attention to is that, you know, Nelson Next was built off of a long history of climate leadership in Nelson, starting back to when we first founded in 1896 with the establishment of Nelson Hydro here. So Nelson Next began when we received a grant through FCM, through the Municipalities for Climate Innovation Fund, and that allowed us to hire a full-time person on a 2-year contract to really focus specifically on developing our climate plan. So that process had an extensive community engagement phase that lasted about a year, where we really got to know the community's values and opinions and attitudes around climate action in Nelson. So that plan was approved by our Mayor and Council in December of 2020, and it does contain some of the most ambitious climate targets in Canada, both for corporate and community emissions. The plan contains 7 aspirational goals that really define the direction that we want to take in Nelson, and I'll show a slide that shows all of those aspirations in just a moment. And Nelson Next is also what's called an LCR, or low carbon resiliency plan. And so that means that it contains both that adaptation work in terms of how we prepare for climate impacts, as well as mitigation work in terms of how we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And importantly, the city's role within this climate plan is really about making sure that we are tracking and reporting on our process, celebrating success, and really making sure that it is being implemented on a broad scale. But we also say that this is really a community plan, and we do invite community members and organizations to even pick up priority tactics within the plan and work along the city to implement them. So broadly speaking, our plan contains 7 of these aspirational goals. And we always say that these are the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And the pathway to get there has got to be flexible. This plan was approved in 2020, and already so much has changed in terms of the regulatory environment, and new technologies, that we're constantly looking at this more as a living document and not a prescriptive pathway. So our plan contains aspirations related to transportation, buildings, waste, food security, the circular economy, as well as corporate leadership as well. So one of the first things that our Mayor and Council did was actually set aside some budget for full-time staff positions to implement the Nelson Next Climate Plan. And that began with myself and our Climate and Energy Manager, Carmen Proctor, who really built some of the legacy climate programs that we have at the city today. And since then, our team has grown significantly. We have 2 full-time positions that are funded by grants. And then we have our climate programs coordinator, that is responsible for implementing our pre-treated organics diversion program. And then we have our energy programs coordinator that administers our regional energy efficiency program. So some of these roles are focused specifically on programs, whereas some of them, like mine, are focused more broadly on the implementation of Nelson Next. So our team also leads some work on embodied carbon research, which, for those of you that don't know, is just the greenhouse gas emissions that are contained in the materials that we use to build and maintain our infrastructure. And then we have our energy specialist that is focused specifically on working with our garage and transit supervisor to decarbonize our fleet, as well as our facilities manager to decarbonize our corporate buildings. So we are taking a phased approach to the implementation of our climate plan. We're currently in phase 2, and these are really marked by what are check-ins to see how we're doing, and really links up with that 5th pillar within the PCP process of measuring our impact. So right now we are currently developing an implementation guide to scale up our efforts, and that'll be brought to council within the next couple of months here. So our approach to implementing our climate plan is really guided by our greenhouse gas and climate risks profiles. So what that means is that because transportation, buildings, and waste are our highest sources of emissions, we're really focused on actions that are going to have an impact in those 3 areas, as well as our largest climate risks. So in Nelson, that's particularly wildfire, debris flood, debris flow, and extreme heat. So a lot of our efforts are centered around those areas of focus. And so on the corporate side, as well as in the community, we take a support and capacity building lens. So as I mentioned, although we have a robust climate and energy team, we are not necessarily the ones actioning the climate projects all the time. And we play a supporting role to the city department. So whether that's looking for funding opportunities, looking for research or partnership opportunities, or lending a hand with bringing in some climate data to apply a climate lens on a particular project. That's one of the ways in which we've seen some really good success of having other departments actually lead projects with a climate lens. And then the other thing that we do in Nelson is that we really do look at a change management lens. We really want to get away from the idea that climate implementation is just a series of projects, and really recognizing that a lot of the work that we do on climate is really about changing behavior, and that the success of a lot of our programs is dependent on how well people actually pick them up and adopt them and use the things that we want to do. So when we talk about change management, that's what I'm referring to. So the other piece here is that we really want to be leading by example. And so that means that we look at our corporate footprint first before going into the community and starting to steer and guide what they're doing. So there's a lot going on there, and I'll share some highlights in just a minute. And we also really have a focus on partnerships. And so the reason for that is that we recognize that one of the best ways for us to engage the community is actually to work alongside them on climate action work. So our team currently manages about 15 climate action partnerships, and that's everything from working with the business community through the Chamber of Commerce's Business Climate Advisor. We have very close relationships with Selkirk College. We've partnered with UBC's React Lab on research for researching the impact of our e-bike financing program, for example, and many others. And so we've had really good success with that. And those partnerships are always focused on one of those three priority areas or climate risks that I mentioned before. And then the other piece here is really that emphasis on reporting and making sure that we are keeping up with the progress that we're making. And so this year, we are currently developing our first climate report card that will really outline a lot of the work that's been done since our plan was approved in 2020, looking at that baseline corporate emissions portfolio as well, and then identifying, where have we come, but where are the gaps that we're seeing as well, and making sure that we're being clear about that, and then coming up with strategies to fill those gaps in order to achieve our climate targets. And then lastly, I wanted to just speak quickly to the equity and inclusion lens. So we really do recognize that equity doesn't necessarily follow from projects and initiatives that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It's very important for us as a municipality to be building that in from the outset to ensure that those things are considered along the way. And so on the community side, I'm just going to highlight some of our cornerstone actions that we have going on currently. So the first is that we are developing Canada's first pre-treated organics diversion program. That program is directly out of the Nelson Next plan. It is a priority tactic and is currently being rolled out by our climate programs coordinator now. We're also in the process of applying through the Community Efficiency Financing program through FCM to scale up our regional energy efficiency program. That is a concierge service that helps people energy retrofit their homes and access rebates. We also administer a community-wide e-bike financing program for Nelson homeowners, where we allow residents to access up to $8,000 towards the purchase of an e-bike. And then we also administer the low carbon homes pilot. And this is really linked to our work that we're doing on step code. The city has just adopted the zero emission step code with a step back option for those who are reaching higher levels of step code in the community. And then we are also conducting the low carbon heritage renewal of the Civic Center. And that project will actually reduce 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions in our corporate buildings portfolio. So it's a very large project that we have on the go currently. And then we've also just partnered with SFU School of Resource and Environmental Management on a 2-year project to integrate nature-based solutions into the climate adaptation work that we do at the city. In terms of corporate actions that we have ongoing, we're currently conducting a 10-year fleet decarbonization strategy that's led by our energy specialist here. And that will set out specific actions and targets for us to reach net zero in our fleet within the next 10 years. We're also developing a sustainable energy management and asset management for our corporate buildings. The city owns over 60 different facilities currently, and they have a range of different maintenance needs, and a lot of them are not in excellent condition. And so what we really recognize is that we need to become more organized on how we're managing our corporate facilities, and that has a huge GHG component and opportunity for emissions reductions as well. We currently offer zero interest financing for e-bikes as well as for food cyclers for city employees. And we are integrating climate competencies into job descriptions through our HR department. And then through the climate and energy team, we also offer climate education for staff on an ongoing basis. And that is really about what we can expect here in Nelson in terms of climate impacts, but also how city staff can actually pick up and apply a climate lens into the work that they do. And so I was asked to just highlight some of the work that we're doing around EDI here. And so one of the things we're really proud of is that we, over the past year, participated in a pilot with Selkirk College for a EDI course for a group of city staff, just in recognition that in order for us to start really integrating an equity lens into the work we do, we have to start with ourselves first. So that work is ongoing, and we're hoping to put another cohort through in the coming year. And so there's several equity components already integrated into a few of the programs that we do, but we are looking to do more. So just briefly, I wanted to highlight the income qualified program that we offer through the Regional Energy Efficiency Program. And that's a way of making sure that those rebates are as accessible as possible. And we also have our seniors retrofit program that is currently on hold, but will be kicking up again in the not too distant future, where we'll actually send people to the homes of senior residents and help them do energy upgrades like installing an energy efficient shower head or adjusting the light fixtures, and just making sure that those quick wins and low hanging fruit, that there's actually somebody there to do that. And a few other things. I'm mindful of the time, so I'm going to step forward and really highlight one of the initiatives that we're particularly proud of that links equity in our climate action work. So there was some research done out of Selkirk College here that really highlighted the level of eco-anxiety and distress that young people are facing around climate change. And our team heard this and really responded in a pretty direct way. And so what we've done is we've partnered with the Wildsite Youth Climate Corps to deliver a Nelson Next Ambassador program in the community. And so this really is a reciprocal relationship where we do some capacity building and education with the youth ambassadors around civic literacy, what local and regional governments are responsible for, how they can participate, and then they go out into the community and they have those one-on-one conversation with residents about our climate plan and the programs and how they can actually take action on climate change themselves. So we're in year 2 of this partnership, and we have just scaled it up in collaboration with the Regional District of Century Kootenay. So our ambassadors are now all over the region. And last summer, they had over 215 meaningful conversations with Nelson residents. And that was linked directly to an increase in enrollment in our Regional Energy Efficiency Program, e-bike financing program, and organics diversion program. So that's what I had prepared to today. I guess my call to action is really where we have seen success here in Nelson is by bringing people to the table willingly and then helping them develop the skills that they need to pick this work up and do it themselves, because really we see that climate change underpins all the work that we do at the City of Nelson, and typically speaking, people just need support in order to do that. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Cecilia. You're getting quite a lot of applause reactions in the chat there. So that this audience is just as excited about the work you're doing as you are. Thanks so much to both presenters. Those were really great, great presentations. We are a little bit tight for timing, so I'm going to open up a couple questions in the chat. First off, I want to start with a question from Angela. It said, would love to see an example of a climate change impact statement. And I'm going to ask our presenters, but I also want to open that up to our participants. If you have an example of a climate change impact statement, Angela says that they are working towards a climate lens for all council reports. If you'd like to share that in the chat, this is a great time to just post that. But I'll ask our presenters if either of you have a climate change impact statement.
You want to go first, Cecilia?
No, you can jump in, Emily. That's great.
Okay, so we did start. We created a climate impact statement onto our council reports this year. When we launched it, we sent it out to all of senior management. We created like a backgrounder. This is why we're doing this. These are some questions to consider, kind of keeping it separate, the mitigation and adaptation, and things to think about. So this launched January 30th. We're halfway through the year. We are monitoring its use. Some departments have picked it up, others not so much. So we are, gathering feedback. We're collecting, research this year to see what could be improved. At present, it is not mandatory, but I believe it should be. I think it should be reviewed the same way that finance or legal reviews any report to council. So we have that in for consideration with mayor and council right now, and we're waiting on a response for that. But I'm happy to maybe send this to Jesse at the FCM, what we've got, our template, and maybe you can share that with the presenters.
Definitely. Thanks so much.
I can jump in there and just offer something as well. So when we go to council, our request for decision document always has a sustainability implication criteria to that. And that is really a project specific statement that relates to the specific thing that's being brought to council. So the way that we do that is if staff are working on something, they will often bring that to our team and we will provide them with some language that relates to the Nelson Next Climate Plan. So we always talk about those two pillars of how it relates to both the adaptation and mitigation work, but it really is on a project specific basis.
Thanks so much. We are really tight for time, but I want to get to this question from Andrew. It's about getting buy-in from council. Do you have any tips for some of our attendees on how to get your council on board for work like this?
I can jump in. I'm sure Cecilia feels the same way. It's not been easy. Okay. Especially given the context of our community as, a bit of a late adopter to getting on this climate action bandwagon, given the fact that we are a steel town. However, this type of work is not easy work, no matter where you are. Building on what Cecilia said, which I really liked, and side note, I'd like to connect with you, Cecilia, is the change management approach. So building that emissions inventory really helps. Like, it doesn't lie, but continuing to educate and hammer it into department heads and staff who maybe have been around for a very long time. They aren't used to this way of thinking. It's just repetition. You have to hammer it in. And those types of remediation steps that we've taken, like the biannual energy and sustainability meeting with our senior management team, you need thick skin. In this space, unless you're in a municipality where you've got a lot of strong buy-in, it is still somewhat novel in our community. So a lot of the work, like what we're doing, in partnership with Garden River First Nation and other stakeholders, opportunities for education, cannot stress that enough. But you just need to say it like it is. You know, I have departments reach out to me all the time to help them with their council reports. And sometimes you do have to be not the bearer of bad news, but you have to say, hey, no, you have to look at this a different way. So you do need that thick skin. And you do sometimes need to say no and encourage people to change their ways of thinking. It's not easy, but you have to keep at it.
I would also just love to make a comment about that council relationship. I think Nelson is a bit unique in the fact that we have such a progressive and passionate council about climate action. We often get asked this question of, how did you get that through? But it's actually the inverse. Our council is really driving a lot of this work, which is fantastic. But what I would say in reference again to that change management approach is that what I have seen work really, really well is making sure that the work that you're doing is evidence-based and that there's value alignment with the council. And so, I mean, I think it would be hard to find a person who didn't want to live in a safe and healthy community. And I think that linking our climate action work to those types of co-benefits is a really, really effective way of reaching people where they're at. And the other thing that I would say is linking our work to the real climate impacts that we're seeing today. So here in Nelson, we have a diverse population with lots of different opinions on climate change. But what really seems to resonate with people is linking things like the increases in wildfire smoke, the heat dome event, things that are impacting people's lives now to the solutions that are being proposed today. And so I've seen that work really, really well. And then the other thing that I would say is that inspiration works much more than fear. All of the research shows that when people are afraid, they're actually less likely to take action that's in their own best interest. Whereas if they feel inspired and empowered, they're more likely to act, which isn't to say downplay what's bad, but it is say celebrate what's good and look at the opportunity. So that's what I would leave the group with.
Thanks so much to both of you. And that's really great advice and also a positive note to leave on.